Welcome to Podcasters Today. I'm your host, Dennis Postman. Today I'm here with Zach. Zach, go ahead and introduce yourself and let everybody know what company you're with.
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Zach Troutman, and I am the head of podcasting for the Southwestern family of podcasts, which is the official podcast network of the Southwestern family of companies.
Amazing, amazing. So tell me, how long have you been doing it? How did you start getting into podcasting?
So the Southwestern family of podcasts is only a couple of years old. We've got 4 podcasts now, but our oldest podcast, which is called The Action Catalyst, is actually about 13 years old.
Okay.
It was just that one up until maybe 5 years ago, and then we spun off 3 more to create the family, to create the network of 4 shows now. I have been personally in podcasting for maybe about 7 years or so. I was in terrestrial radio originally, and then ended up in satellite radio working for Sirius. I ended up managing a Sirius XM station. And while I was there, some of the shows that we had on that station wanted to spin up podcasts of their own, because we started making podcast products for the Sirius shows. And then I transitioned over to just podcasting exclusively and dropped the radio stuff.
Yeah. When did you notice that? When did you feel that trend was starting to happen, or did it just happen for you?
I think the first one I did of those that made the jump from radio into podcasting was probably around maybe 2018, 2019. And then I think definitely COVID, there was a big uptick because, people were at home, if you're recording a radio show or you're doing something like that remotely anyway, you're essentially doing a podcast. You're just sending it out over different channels.
Right.
And then the uptick in consumption of podcasts during COVID as well. I think the technological capabilities and then just the consumption that all happened during the pandemic, that's definitely when I saw the biggest surge in demand for those kind of things.
So tell me a little bit, if it's okay, tell me a little bit about the 4 podcasts that you do, how they differentiate, and who your best client is to listen to those shows.
Yeah, definitely. So like I said, it's the official podcast network of the Southwestern family of companies. And the Southwestern family of companies is a really old conglomerate of a bunch of different businesses that's been around since actually 1855 was when the first one was started. So it has an incredibly long history. It was just one business then for about 100 years or so, and then it started spinning up more. And I think now we're somewhere around like 18 to 20 different businesses all over the world. A lot of them are in the US, but we have some presence in South Africa as well, Europe, especially Eastern Europe, and a lot of other places around the world. But our 4 podcasts are, like I said, The Action Catalyst, which was launched in 2013, and it represents the entire family of companies. It is a leadership and business and inspirational podcast. It's for entrepreneurs. It's for business leaders. We say it's for anybody that has sat in the C-suite for years or anyone that aspires to the C-suite.
Right.
And the idea is really that, let's say you've reached really high levels of success. You'll still hit a plateau where you could go even further, but you're coasting or you've hit some kind of speed bump, or maybe you're just getting started and you can't get over that very initial hump. What we want to do is bring thought leaders and experts and inspiration and advice that's going to help push you through whatever barrier that is, whether it's a barrier to even further success or barrier to your first success. And so that's our oldest podcast. That's our flagship podcast, The Action Catalyst. And it's been around since 2013. It belongs. Go ahead. Yeah.
Can I ask, has it always had the same host, or has it changed over the years? Or
it's changed a lot. It started off with one host, and then we went to a different host, and then we added a second host, and the 2 of them did it in tandem, and then both of them ended up phasing out, and now we have 2 additional hosts who co-host, who tag team different episodes, and so we've had 5 hosts in total. And currently, our current incarnation is Adam Outland and Stephanie Moss are the 2 hosts that handle duties right now.
And that says some things, not only for the company, but also for the podcast, to be able to switch hosts and have 13 years of success. That's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, well, all the hosts have come up through the Southwestern ecosystem. It is a very kind of cozy business ecosystem where a lot of people will it's not unusual for an employee to stay with Southwestern for 40 or 50 years. We've got people retiring from the company who have been with it for literally 4 decades. And so everybody that we've had come through as a host is really familiar with the principles of the company, what we're about, what we represent. And so plugging somebody new in, while we're always sad to see somebody go,
Sure.
plugging in a new host is always, there's always alignment in what we're trying to accomplish and how we get there.
That's very cool. That's almost unheard of to be able to have, but that speaks volumes for the company to be able to just, like you said, in alignment. So, all right. So yeah, that's a perfect show for what we do at Motivation and Success. So very cool.
Absolutely.
That's our whole target market and audience. So go ahead, go on to door number 2.
Door number 2. So that one, like I said, represents the whole family of companies in totality, but then the others represent individual businesses under that umbrella. So the next oldest one was launched in 2022. It is the official podcast of one of our businesses, which is Southwestern Legacy Insurance Group. They're a final expense and life insurance provider. And their show is called Let's Talk Legacy. It's not really about insurance at all. It's about the idea of legacy, which is in their name. You know, everybody has their own idea of what legacy means to them. It's something they create to pass on to the world as a whole or to pass on to their family. It's something they create and nurture and protect. And whatever that thing is for our guest, that's what we talk about, just kind of the idea of legacy. Occasionally we pop insurance there, but not really. It's about legacy and what are you trying to protect and how is that important to you? And honestly, of our 4 podcasts, that one is the most diverse in terms of the guests we get, because we'll have everyday folks, but then we'll have people like we've had Muhammad Ali's grandson on there, who's also a professional boxer. And he's talking about the Ali family legacy and what that means to have that as part of his identity, while also wanting to create his own legacy as a professional boxer and as a man. We've had Muriel Hemingway, right? We've had Muriel Hemingway, who is, of course, an Oscar-nominated actress, but she's also the granddaughter of Ernest Hemingway. And so she's got a really kind of complicated legacy. And then we've had a bunch of people like that. We've had Holocaust survivors. We've had, you know, other people who run businesses who help families preserve their legacy, like, you know, like Legacy Box and some of those photo cataloging kind of things. Yeah. They have a very different view on legacy because they've seen thousands of people's legacies come through. So yeah, that's a very wide ranging podcast because legacy can mean anything to anybody.
Right.
But it all ties into that theme. So that's Let's Talk Legacy for Southwestern Legacy Insurance Group. So then the next one would be The Talent Trade. That was launched in 2023. That is the official podcast of Thinking Ahead Executive Recruiting. So they're our in-house executive recruiting firm. And The Talent Trade is very much for recruiters by recruiters. It's a much more niche podcast. Now, if you're not a recruiter and you're not in that industry, there's still lots of great career advice, what to do in interviews, what to do if you're job hunting, what to do if you're a business leader and you're trying to hire somebody or, you know, create your staff. But it is definitely more niche. It's kind of for the recruiting industry. We've got some really good partnerships with that podcast. We're featured every quarter in the newsletter for the National Association of Personnel Services, which is a big trade industry in that world. And so they feature our content every quarter in there, which is really fabulous. That's maybe our fastest growing podcast right now because we're a big fish in a small pond, right?
Yeah.
And so that one's going really, really well. And Stephanie Moss, who's the co-host of The Action Catalyst, is actually the host of that one as well. So she's pulling double duty on 2 podcasts. God bless her. And she's doing a great job.
That's awesome. And there's such a need for proper recruiting right now. I mean, not that there never was before, but everybody, it is so hard to find the right person for a job anymore. Yeah.
Well, so, and understanding that human element too is what I think they really bring in that podcast, because obviously AI is playing such a big role in hiring and staffing and looking through resumes and recruitment right now. And really those very tangible soft skills, human skills that are still required for that world is where they really shine, providing that kind of insight and advice and guidance on that podcast. So yeah.
Never a lack of content either. I'm sure there's so much. I mean, what controversial, oh my gosh, trying to figure that all out in today's market.
Yep. And and Stephanie, what makes her such a good interviewer on the Action Catalyst is that she's from that world. She's talking to people on the phone every day, finding out what motivates them, what they need to make things happen, how they problem solve and move through their work process. So for her, interviewing people, interviewing these CEOs and these leaders and everything, I mean, she's just kind of doing it on a more public scale where she was just always doing it on one-on-one phone conversations before, but she's got that natural curiosity and aptitude for it.
Right. Just the conversation. That's amazing. That's very cool.
That's right. And then, so number 4, so the last one, which was launched the following year in 2024, is called the Growth Workshop podcast. And the Growth Workshop is the podcast of SBR Consulting, which is a business acceleration consultancy in London, England. And so they're our first internationally based podcast. And those guys do a great job. It's more of a B2B podcast. It's more for businesses looking to accelerate their revenue in particular, but scaling and things like that as well. And that's SBR Consulting's bread and butter is that. And so they're just bringing that into the podcasting world and sharing some of that on the Growth Workshop.
I love it. That's very cool. Yeah. I mean, wow. And sharing that that's very cool. And congratulations on the international. That's good.
Yeah, no, that's a lot of fun. We've got a couple, we're always getting proposals for additional podcast products as well. And we've got a few more internationally based ones that are possibilities for the coming years. One out of Canada, one out of South Africa. And so we'll see where those go. We're actually doing kind of a demo recording of an episode with the South Africa ones next week. And so, yeah, there might be more to come.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's very exciting. Congratulations. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about, like, you have a lot of podcasting experience. Tell me, what have you noticed over the years that have changed now? It's 7 years you've been in it, you said?
Yeah, just about. Yep.
Yeah. So what is noticed over the years, like the trends that we may have noticed, like outside of podcasting, or that you definitely noticed inside of podcasting?
Yeah, I mean, the obvious one would be video. Yeah. The introduction of video and the turn to video. But, I don't really know the percentage of people who, the thing I think is coming around, and it's long overdue, is getting really good analytics and data on listening and listening trends, right? Yeah. So it was hard to find out for a really long time exactly how many people were listening, because all the different platforms define a listen in a different way, right? There's listens, there's plays, there's downloads, there's streams. For some companies, all 4 of those mean the same thing. For some companies, they have different definitions and they calculate it differently. Yeah. There's finally starting to be some cohesion in how we talk about these numbers, which is really important for the industry as a whole. If we're going to raise all ships, to have a good idea of what we're actually talking about. But now that they are starting to get better with those numbers, it's really interesting to see there's an explosion of video. Everyone thinks they need to do video now, but even on a lot of video first platforms like YouTube and things like that, some of the studies show that people will watch a podcast through the YouTube app or through the web or whatever, but they've got the screen minimized for half of the time. Yeah. Or, they're listening to it, audio only through like the YouTube Music app. Yeah. They're not actually utilizing the video. So it's really hard to say. I know actually, as we talk right now, today, earlier this morning or just yesterday, there was a big new product that came out through AMP, a new report or a new thing that they put forward, where they actually kind of set a industry-wide definition of what a podcast is. And they had a very technical definition as well, but more or less the shorthand version was, if you close your eyes and it still works, it's a podcast. And so I think that audio is still going to be king. I know for me personally, when I do most of my podcast listening is either when I'm driving or when I'm working out. Yep. So for me, it's always got to work as audio. But there's definitely a big trend to video, as I'm sure everybody knows.
I think, just to throw in, to add to that, I think that, there's people, a podcast can survive without video. Video can't survive without the podcast side.
That's right.
I don't think like every person on our network, just our television, every single one of them has it's a podcast too. Because if somebody watches your show, let's say they love watching your TV show, if they miss 3 episodes, they're going to listen to it on their podcast. Or like you said, they're going to pull it up on the app on their phone and they're going to be listening anyway. So I think people would definitely they would hate, even if they love a video, I think they would hate not being able to just get to audio if they're in the car or something like that. I think it'd drive them crazy from my experience.
To that point, when I worked for SiriusXM, we were actually part of the radio station that I was a part of had a television station attached to it as well. It was actually a media company that owned 2 TV stations, a magazine, and a SiriusXM station. I just worked for the Sirius side of it. But because we were all kind of one big media family, a lot of our radio shows, I don't know, a good maybe 25% of them anyway, were TV shows first that we stripped out the audio from, make a few tweaks for things that are entirely dependent on the visual. But for the most part, that program still works for radio. And we would bundle that, with the TV show. Hey, spend a little bit more, we'll put you on Sirius. Yeah. Boom. And so if you're video, audio's good to go. But people still want to have that option. Yeah, like you said, people will get mad if they don't have the luxury of being able to take that on the go and listen to it as an audio feature as well.
Yeah, we're no longer in a time where people can't have their hands on the what they want as far as their show when they need it, right?
Yeah. But a couple other things too. I think listeners have gotten more savvy about advertising. They're better at skipping. They're better at getting over it. Yeah. And so advertisers have to be better at the way they do their ads and where they put them and what they make them sound like. Their ad spend, really spending it in the right place instead of just kind of scattershot, throwing money at every podcast everywhere. Yeah. I think like BetterHelp is kind of the biggest example of that, right? BetterHelp is always like in the top 3 of advertisers for podcasting, and they just seem to be on every podcast all the time. And maybe that works for them. I mean, it must, but I don't think that's the norm anymore. Okay. And I've really enjoyed the kind of equilibrium that the industry has reached as well, with the fact that even there are so many ad marketplaces available now that even smaller podcasts can take part in monetization, can advertise, can get into that game. And so it's become a much more kind of democratic environment to podcast in nowadays, even though it's always been kind of a grassroots, run by the people kind of thing. There's a much greater kind of collective bargaining power and collective opportunity than there used to be.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's one thing that's definitely neat about technology is seeing how that helps us from it. We complain about inflation and the things that go on there, but the beauty of we're having podcasting around for a long time. People think of different ways to reduce ad spend. It's even like advertising on Hulu. Who would have ever thought that you could advertise on Hulu for $500, right? So that's the beauty of technology getting up to speed with some of those things. What are some of the things that you look at when you know a podcast is good, or how do you evaluate a podcast for people?
As far as how do I know
if somebody's sending you
we're doing this right versus we need to make some changes or
yeah.
Okay, so if we're looking at a brand new podcast, I guess, right? Like a company comes to me and says, we want to spin up a podcast, we want to get into this. Here we go. Yeah. I've actually got, I think most of the companies hate me because I always insist they do this one thing first. I've got this form. It's 20 questions. They don't actually have to fill it out and send it back to me. It's really just a brainstorming exercise. But it's basically 20 reasons not to do a podcast, right? It's just things I want them to think about, have you considered that you'll actually have to do this? Have you considered that you'll have to spend this, that you'll have to allot this amount of time to this, that you'll have to do this with this frequency, right? Yeah. It's basically 20 points trying to talk them out of doing a podcast. Because I don't want that stuff to come up later and us to be, 6 months into a podcast and they just get burnt out and now we've got nothing. sustainability and consistency is the most important thing in podcasting. And so I try hard on the front end to deter people
Right.
basically from doing a podcast. And then if they're cool with all that and they still want it, then we can talk. So that's the first thing I do is I send them that 20 questions, and gosh, that weeds out 90% of them. Or they'll come back to me later and they've thought it through a little bit more.
But that's the 90% that are falling off before episode 10 or 21, right?
That's right. That's right. So they were going to fall off anyway. We're just saving them a lot of money and time.
Right. Yeah. I love it. I need to take a look at this. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. So that's one thing. And then, and this sounds so cliche and so obvious, but like, just know why you want to do a podcast in the first place. For some people, it's revenue generation, like directly, like they want to get a sale on something. For some, it's just lead gen. For some, it's purely thought leadership, and they want to get their name out there in the media and do media placements. For some people, it's content generation. Like the podcast is kind of secondary. They use the podcast just to create bulk content, but then most of it gets used on social media or for webinars or something else. And the podcast is kind of a side product. Yeah. And all of those reasons are perfectly good reasons to start a podcast, but know which one is your reason when you start it, because that's going to inform how you set up your infrastructure and your workflow and who you get on your staff to do certain things. And there's been so many podcasts I've started where they'll either not have a defined reason for spinning it up. They just want to do it because podcasting's cool. And then they try to apply a purpose later that it wasn't built for. Or they have no purpose at the beginning, but then they want you to measure if it's been successful or not. And you have no metric to measure it against if you're not, right? So yeah, having your reason is the only way you're going to build it right from the ground up, the only way you're going to build it in a sustainable way, and the only way you're going to be able to measure whether you're getting to where you want to be with it.
What does a win really look like? I love that. That's
yeah. Just know when you get into it, how will I know when I've reached success?
Yeah. Because you're right. Some is for money over here, some for it's for influence over here, some for it's for sale. Yeah, that's a really good point.
All of those things ultimately create money or influence, right? Like if you're making a lot of money, you'll be able to gain more influence. If you're gaining more influence, you'll be able to bring in more money. So like they're all going to lead back to money and influence, which is what every business wants.
Right.
But yeah, have a defined path for which of those is more important to you right away. And if they both are, prioritize them, right? Have priorities. If lead gen and thought leadership are both your purposes from the beginning, that's okay too. Yeah. But one's got to be a little more important than the other. So that if we end up getting one of those and the other's lagging behind a little bit, does that mean we're not successful, or does that mean we are successful and we just need to give this one a little boost? So you gotta weigh them a little bit too. Yeah,
I agree. Do you have any horror stories where people haven't done that right that you've seen?
Absolutely. Well, I won't name the podcast.
Yeah. Don't do that. Yeah.
But we had there was a show where the person who was the leader of the company wanted to spin up a podcast because everybody else was, and they wanted to do it. And they said, we want to do it. We want to do it fast. We want to have a kind of a roster of hosts who alternate between shows. And here's the 3 hosts we want to have: this one, this one, and this one. I said, okay, I'll make that happen for you. Sure, we'll do that. We did it. We started it. That leader then exited the company in very short order. So the person whose idea the podcast had been was no longer with the company, was no longer providing any guidance on that. Of the 3 hosts we had, only one of them actually had an appetite to do it at all. The other 2 just did it because the leader told them, like, you're doing this podcast now. So both of those other 2 hosts jumped ship, and we were just down to the one. Thankfully, he was game to do it, and he was a great team player. But then we still didn't know why we were doing the podcast. We were just trying to make the best content we could to support the company. Not look. It was more about not making them look bad than it was about knowing how to make them look better, right?
How do we not mess it up worse?
Right. And so we just never really had any guidance with that. And it was one that was kind of started originally as just a thought leadership. This would be a cool thing. But then they wanted to kind of move the goalpost and be like, can we drive leads with this?
Yeah.
Then they kind of adjusted it again to, well, forget about leads, but can we drive recruiting, get people to join the company instead? And then eventually just general monetization into the conversation. And I was like, guys, you gotta, I'll help you with any of this, but like, just give me one.
Yeah.
that we can
Some
shoot.
direction. Yeah.
I would say that, but the fact that I went through that with that show definitely benefited all the other shows I created down the line. Because man, did I learn a lot from that experience. That saved a lot of other. It didn't save them time or money, but it saved a lot of other companies time and money later.
Yeah, I love that entire approach of like going through those things, because I think there's such a false out there thing about, you know, like facade about what a podcast is and what it looks like, how much fun, you know. Nobody ever talks about like the like it's a lot of work, and here's what goes into editing, and here's what and then guests, like if you have guests, you know, how, and if they can't make it for something. There's just so many things, there's so many variables that it's glamorized a lot on, you know, the top however many percent, but I don't think they talk about it, which is part of the reason we have the show, right? We want podcasters to understand what they're going to go through, what the good, the bad, the ugly, and then, you know, what it takes to get there. So I appreciate those comments.
And the biggest thing when it comes to podcasting, you know, the time commitment's usually the biggest barrier for people and the biggest cause of burnout. Yeah. But the good thing about podcasting is it's such a flexible medium, right? You can do a 3-hour podcast, or you can have a podcast that's 5 minutes, and you release one, you know, every couple of days. So it's not really the time commitment in terms of how much time that's important. It's that you're willing to consistently allocate that amount of time, which is why I always tell them, like, if you're going to launch this podcast, you know, be real conservative at the beginning. Yeah. If you know for a fact that you can allocate an hour every other week, we can always start your podcast off at, you know, a release every other week, so 2 a month, and we can make them 15 minutes long, and that's fine. Because we can always add more later. We can't take it away. If we get a bunch of people listening and they like it, and then we say, hey, we're going back to 1 episode a month, guys, they're going to be mad. Yeah. But if we do 2 episodes a month, 15 minutes, they love it. We can add a third. We can make it 30 minutes long. We can make it 45 minutes long. So just start conservative, because you can always say, hey, public demand, they wanted more. Here's more. You can always add.
Yeah. Adding never hurts. Yeah. That's taking away. That's a good point. That's very good point. And that's something I see, you know, well, there's some crazy ones that have come out today. I mean, I remember when Entrepreneur on Fire came out, and, you know, every day when John Lee Dumas, it was every single day. I mean, and with huge success, but, you know, the work that comes in with that, you know, that's grinding. So, and that's slowed down. It's not every day anymore. So that's, it's a good point to make though.
Yeah.
So if somebody wants to get a podcast with your company, or what's the best way to get a hold of you? How do they find you?
Yeah, best way to find, I'll give them lots of points of contact. The best way to find the family of companies overall and just learn more about who we are before you even dive into our podcasts is southwestern.com. It'll take you right there. All of our companies are listed there. If you want to get to our 4 different podcasts directly, pretty simple. The Action Catalyst is theactioncatalyst.com. The Talent Trade is thetalenttrade.com. Let's Talk Legacy is letstalklegacypod.com. And then the Growth Workshop is on SBR Consulting's website, which is sbrconsulting.com/podcast. And so you can find any of them there. And if you want to find kind of just a one-stop shop page that's got all of them, southwestern.com/podcasts.
Okay. Amazing. Well, is there anything else you want to add for our viewers at all, Zach?
No, just that it's a really exciting time to be a podcaster. Whether that means you've been in podcasting for over a decade like we have, or whether that means you're just getting started, there's more opportunities available to grow, to diversify your offerings, to do everything and do it cheaper and faster, frankly. So if you're thinking at all about jumping into the podcasting space, think about it. Do think about why you want to do it, but then do it. Think about it, do it, and keep doing it, because again, the consistency is key. So think it through on the front end, but do something and just keep doing it.
I love. You enjoy the suck at first, right? You're gonna get better. You're
gonna get better. You can always come back and retweak it at the beginning. We've actually done that. Our catalog for the Action Catalyst is so deep now; it's over 500 episodes. And while the content's always been good, the audio hasn't. And so we're actually going back through now for our first 200 episodes ish, and releasing every other week remastered episodes where we use some audio cleanup tools and we edit it tighter and we beef up the audio and we put it back out with like the current audio standards that we've got now and everything. And there are episodes that people haven't heard in a really long time, and they sound better than ever, and they're fresh to a lot of ears. And so, even if you've got some skeletons deep in your back catalog closet, that's just content for another day down the road. So you just keep going.
I love that. Yeah, I tell everybody, content doesn't go old. You gotta, bring it back and make sure there's somebody who wants to use it and somebody's going to gain something from it. So
yep, absolutely.
Well, thank you very much for being on the show, Zach. I really appreciate it. I'm excited for it to be aired, and I look forward to the next time we speak.
It's been a genuine pleasure.
Thank you.
Cool.
Let me stop the recording here. Maybe we can stop it. If not, so why is it not stopping? Oh, there we go.